Hey there, welcome to this video, and in this particular video we are going to go hands-on with Node.js Microservices. Okay, so we are going to build an application which is going to be a task management or to-do management application, whatever you call it, and it's going to have a few services, and we are going to use technologies like Express, Mongoose, MongoDB, Docker Compose, and RabbitMQ. Okay, so these are the technologies that we are going to play around with, and we are going to create microservices. Okay, now if you're not subscribed to my channel yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and turn on bell notification icon, because that is going to help me and motivate me bring such amazing content for you all. Okay, also feel free to comment below and let me know what sort of videos I should bring on this channel. Okay, I do post a lot on the channel, and if you like this kind of content, do post below, comment, and also introduce yourself. I would love to know you as well. I personally read all the comments and I go through them. Okay, so without a further ado, this is what we are going to build, and without a further ado, without wasting any time, let's jump right in. So now is the time that we begin talking about the application that we are going to build and the entire architecture, what all components are going to be there, and how it's going to be structured. So this is what our application is going to be. It is going to have three major services. First is the user service. Then we have task service, and then we have the notification service. Now, user service is the service that will be managing the users of the application. For example, it is going to do the job of saving the users, getting all the users all from the database. So it has its own copy of the database, and the database that we are going to use over here is MongoDB. Okay, so user is going to have its own database, and it's going to manage users of the application, and it is going to expose certain APIs which we can make use of and consume through Postman. Then we have task service. Now, task service is going to do the job of managing all the tasks or to-dos that you register in the application against a particular user. Okay, so task service is basically also going to have its own copy of database. Again, we are using MongoDB over here. I'm keeping it consistent, but if you want to switch to relational database, you can do that. Okay, but I'll be making use of MongoDB, and task service will also be exposing certain APIs which can be consumed via Postman. All right, now here we have two services, user, task, and then you have the third service, which is notification service. Now, the goal of notification service is to send out notifications. So what will happen is, whenever a task is registered into the application, the notification should be sent out. Now, notification can be in the form of email, SMS, or like app notification or website notification, whatever sort of notifications you want to send in. Okay, that is what this service is going to do. It's just doing the job of sending in the notification. Okay, and the communication between the task service and notification, because there has to be some sort of communication between task service and notification service, right? Because task is going to be added, and notification service should know that a new task has been added. So that event has to be sent out to notification service so that it can send out the notifications. Now, for doing that kind of communication between the task and the notification service, we will be making use of asynchronous communication, and we will be doing it with the help of message brokers. And the message broker that we are going to use over here, you can see the message queue over here. The message broker that we are going to have is RabbitMQ, and we are going to create a queue inside RabbitMQ, and it is going to basically have a queue which task will send or produce the message for this particular queue, and notification service will consume the messages from this queue. So whenever a task is registered in the application, the message is sent to message queue by task service after saving the message to the database. Okay, you send out the event or the notification to message queue, and then notification service is connected to this particular queue, and it is consuming all the messages that have been sent. Now, the benefit of introducing a message broker over here is it promotes asynchronous communication. So tomorrow, if notification service is down or it's not working, and if something happens to notification service, then the task service is not blocked. It will keep on sending the messages to the message queue, and the queue will have the messages lined up. Now, whenever notification service is back and up again, it can start processing the pending messages. So this way we are promoting asynchronous communication between these two services. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. And you can see Docker icons over here. a lot of places. Okay, so we are going to Dockerize everything, like all the service. So all these services like database, the microservices like user, task and notification, the RabbitMQ, everything is going to run on Docker. So we are going to make use of Docker for the same. So this is the entire application that we are going to build. Okay, if you're not aware of concepts like RabbitMQ or like any sort of technology that we use, don't worry, I'll have you covered inside the course. Okay, now coming over to the technologies that we will be using, the technologies that are used are Express plus Mongoose plus MongoDB. Now, Mongoose is basically I'm using so that our application can interact with MongoDB. Okay, and MongoDB is the database. Express.js is a framework which will help us create the APIs. And RabbitMQ is the message broker, like I said, and we will be making use of Docker and Docker Compose. Docker to containerize the applications and Docker Compose to manage multiple containers images. Okay, if you're not aware of any of these tech, don't worry, I'll have you covered inside. Okay, so this is what it's going to be. I hope you all are excited as I am. Let's jump right in. Hey there, so now is the time that we begin talking about some of the tools that we are going to need to begin with. So here on Google, I would encourage you all to search for Node.js. Now what is Node.js? So here you'll see this official website of Node.js, and you will also start, you will have access to some information around Node.js. So you can see over here, Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. So this is the engine that that makes use of in Node.js. Okay, and Node.js is basically, you can make out from this website title, it is there to help you run JavaScript everywhere. Okay, so basically it allows you to run JavaScript on a server. It's fast, handles many users at once, and it's great for building real-time scalable applications. Now on the right hand side, you're seeing some description as well. You can see you can run JavaScript on Windows, Linux, Unix, Mac OS and more. Okay, different operating systems is what basically they are telling you. And it is making use of this JavaScript engine, which is called V8 JavaScript engine. Okay, and understand this. So why Node.js exists, I'll just give you a very short overview for those who are not aware of why Node.js exists. So understand this, JavaScript was designed to run only in browser. Okay, JavaScript code executes in browser along with HTML. Okay, now what happened is JavaScript became really popular and the world thought that, hey, we should also be able to run JavaScript on your machine. So what happened is the V8 engine that was taken out and the Node.js was built. And Node.js basically, if installed on your system, it allows JavaScript to run on your system. So JavaScript can run on your system with the help of Node.js because of that V8 JavaScript engine. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. To cut short, Node.js allows JavaScript code to run outside a web browser. And when I say outside web browser, I mean over here different operating systems like Windows, Mac OS and all. Okay, so if you go to this website, it's a very straightforward website. You can see about Node.js over here. You can read more about Node.js. Node.js is a free open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime engine that lets developers create servers, web apps, command line tools, and scripts. Okay, here is a sample code as well. You can create a HTTP server, write tests. You can do so many things. You can see, right? And what I would encourage is you all should install Node.js onto your system. So just download it from here. Okay, you have this download link over here as well. Okay, so you can download whichever version you want and for whichever operating system you want. Okay, so I would encourage you to do so. If you don't want to make use of Docker or anything, you can make use of, you can choose the way you can download the installer, okay, for Windows, Mac OS, Linux and all. Okay, and you would see the download button depending on your operating system over here itself. Okay, so I would encourage you all to install this free software, which is Node.js. Now, this is one thing that we are going to need. Another thing we are going to need is Visual Studio Code. Now, of course, we have something wherein we can run our application. So our code will run using Node.js. Okay, but how are we going to write the code? So for writing the code, we need something called as Visual Studio Code. It is a free integrated development environment, which means IDE, that lets you write your code. And it has a really good support for web development. So I would encourage you all to make use of Visual Studio Code. It's absolutely free, by the way. just head over to this website over here, search for Visual Studio Code, and you will come over to this website, and you can see over here. Okay, this is the website. Now they keep on changing, like all the websites that we are seeing, they keep on changing the layout. Okay, so last time I had visited it was something else, and now it's something else. So that's how I remember. So you can click on download for Windows, or you can download the Node.js installer for other platforms as well. Okay, so depending on where you are, you can download, you can install it just like any other software. Okay, and if you come over here, I have Node.js already installed. So here I have the welcome screen. It's showing me the list of recent projects that I've worked on. So I keep making use of Visual Studio Code a lot. Okay, so that's why it's showing me the recent projects. Okay, but you can, if you're new to Visual Studio Code, you might see a welcome screen like this. I'll just close the welcome screen, and you have an option, some options over here. So you'll have to open the project to start coding over here. But yeah, this is an amazing tool, and you can install both these softwares just like any other software on your operating system. It's pretty simple, straightforward, and I hope you will be able to. Okay, if you choose to make use of any other IDE, that's absolutely okay. All right, but I recommend Node.js and Visual Studio Code. That's what my recommendation is. So I hope you are able to follow, and I hope you all were able to do the setup. So now is the time that we begin talking about user service. Okay, so we'll talk about the stack we are going to use, as you can see over here, and the API that we are going to have in this service. So what stack we are going to use? So we are going to use these two. We are going to make use of Express.js, and I'm going to make use of Mongoose over here. Okay, now, if you don't know what these are, don't worry, I'll just take you through. Also, we are going to need a database to persist all our data. Right, and for that I'm going to make use of MongoDB. Now, what is this user service going to do? So this user service is going to help us deal with all the users in our application. So when I say it is going to help us deal with all the users, it is going to help us save the user and also retrieve all the users from the database, right? So I'm going to need a database, and that is where the database choice that we have taken is of MongoDB. So it's going to have users database, and we are going to need routes to do all the operations. Routes meaning the endpoints that we are going to expose. So the first route or the first API that we are going to have is /users, which is a GET request, and it is going to fetch all the users, and post users, which is going to help us create a new user in the system. Okay. So I hope this is clear as to what routes or what endpoints we are going to have. We are going to keep things simple, to the point, but useful. Okay. Now talking about stack over here, we are going to use two things, Express.js and Mongoose. So what is Express? So Express is a simple way to build APIs using Node.js. Okay, and it makes our backend code look clean and easy. Okay, so that is what Express is. And what is Mongoose? So Mongoose help your application to talk to MongoDB in a structured way. Right. So we have our JavaScript code that we have written, and we have a database, MongoDB. Okay, so we need a way from our application to talk to the database, and that is what Mongoose helps us do. Okay, so yeah, these are the two things that we are going to use. We can talk more about these two things. So you can come over here to Google and search for Express.js. Just in case if you're not aware of this, you can head over to this official website that you get over here, expressjs.com. Now, what is Express.js? You can see over here, it's a minimalistic web framework for Node.js. And it's so minimalistic that over here on the right hand side, you can see like this code actually is going to expose and an endpoint on the root URL or the root of the domain. And it is going to respond with hello world. You can see. And it's running on port 3000. Right. So that is what this code is doing. It's hardly, like I would say, 10-line code is what you can see. Okay, so in 10 lines, you have an endpoint up and running. That's how simple and minimalistic it is. Okay, and this is the code, or this is the command, I should say, to install Express into your application. Okay, so this is something that we are going to use. First thing, you can go over here to the options and read more if you are interested. Okay, this is the official website. And then you have Mongoose over here. So before talking about Mongoose, let's talk about MongoDB. So if you search for MongoDB, you'll see this official website, mongodb.com. And here you have an option to download MongoDB if you wish to. Okay. But I'm not going to recommend that. We can make use of Docker as well to spawn a MongoDB instance. Okay. Or if you want to install it, that's completely fine. It's totally your choice. Okay. So this is MongoDB. You can see over here, this is the document-based database. Okay, it's NoSQL database. There are no relationships between tables, and over here it's basically helping you getting out of the rigid tabular data structures. Okay, and there are flexible documents that map directly to the objects in your code. That's what the USP of MongoDB is. Okay, this is MongoDB. Now, once we have this database running, we need to save all the data. So for that, we have Mongoose. So you can see over here, I have some AI overview over here coming in from Google. What is Mongoose Node.js? So I've searched for Mongoose Node.js because Mongoose is also a animal. Okay. So Mongoose Node.js is what I would recommend searching. And you can see over here, Mongoose is an object data modeling library for Node.js and MongoDB. Okay. So it abstracts a lot of things. Okay. And all your interaction with MongoDB databases and allows you to write simple code to interact with the database. And this is the official website, Mongoose.js. You can come over here and you can see this is the official website, and you can see how easy it is making code look, okay, or interaction look. You can see this is how you connect to the database. Okay, this is how you create a new schema in the MongoDB. So it's really useful. This is what we are going to use. So now let us begin setting up this user service project. So I will set it up along with all the dependencies that we are going to need. So I'll come over here. Okay, I have Visual Studio Code open here in the background. Okay, and I have my Windows Explorer open since I'm on Windows machine. If you are on Mac, you're going to see a Finder over here. You can open the Finder. And if you're on Linux, you can open whatever software you have. Okay, the Linux Explorer basically. Now you need to head over to your workspace or choose any folder. So here I've chosen this folder. So desktop, courses, EmbarkX, Node.js. So within this folder, I have created one folder called Node.js Microservices. Now within this folder, I'm going to have the entire project. Okay, this is the folder where I'm going to have entire project. So within this folder, I'm going to have user service and all the other services that are needed for my application or for my project. So what we are going to do is we are going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code. So just head over to Visual Studio Code and just say open folder over here. Now, when you say open folder, you will be shown this kind of a pop-up like Explorer pop-up or a file chooser. You will have to choose the folder that you have created. So I'll choose this folder. So it might not show up this way, but you will have to navigate to the folder or the place or the location where you have created this folder. So just say select folder. And it is going to open this folder over here. I'll just close this welcome screen. I don't need it. And here now you can see like you have this folder open. Now this folder does not have anything in it, right? So let us create a subfolder over here within this folder and call this as user service, something like this. Okay. So this is the folder where all my code related to user service is going to reside. Okay. So far, so good, right? We are keeping things organized, right? And we have this first service over here, right? So what I'm going to do is, or what I will also do is here, Node.js Microservices. You can even rename this to something sensible or the project name. It's totally your choice. Okay. So this is what I have now. Now within this particular folder, I won't create anything manually, but what I will do is I will come over here. Okay, to menu options, and Node.js has this integrated terminal within itself. So I'll say new terminal. If you're familiar with Node.js, you will be very well aware of this inbuilt terminal. Okay, so come over here and so let me reopen the terminal, right? New terminal. Okay, now within terminal, what we will do is we'll run certain commands. So I'll say ls. So you can see where I am in the root directory. So I'm going to navigate to user service over here. Okay, I'll say clear, and then within user service. So right now I'm in user service. Now within user service, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say npm init-y. Okay. So here with this command, what we are doing is we are initializing a Node.js project. So we are saying npm init-y. Now, when I press enter, I'm going to see a file being automatically created over here within user service, which is package.json file. And this is the file. It's a JSON file. You can read this file over here. You also saw the output being printed over here to the console. You can see root package.json, and this is the content. Okay. So here you're seeing the content here as well. Okay. So this is the file which will keep the track of project information and all the dependencies of our project over here, which is user service. So you can see the project name is user service, version is this. Okay. This is the main file over here. Okay. Now this main file does not exist. So we can create this main file, which is index.js. So under user service, I'll say index.js. This is where we'll write the code. Okay. So this is done, and I'll close this, or we can keep this open, index.js. Now package.json is created. Okay. So we are done. So this has created a basic Node.js project with default settings. Now what I need to do is I need to install all the libraries we need. Okay. Now what all libraries we are going to need? So we are going to need Express and Mongoose. So I'll come over here. Okay. So you can see this is Express. This is the command to install Express. So I'll copy this, npm install Express. Okay. Make sure via terminal you are in user service project. So you can see I'm in user service project. Okay. And run this command, npm install Express. Okay. Now what will happen is you will see like it's added. Okay. And if you come over here, you'll see like under dependencies, Express is added in package.json. You can see Express is added to our project. That is what it means. Okay. So this is done. And then I'll come over here. Okay. This is done. We can head over to Mongoose now. Okay. So for Mongoose also, we are going to need npm install Mongoose save. Okay. So I'll come over here and I'll run this. Okay. So you will have this updated to include Mongoose as well. You can see Mongoose has been added now. Right. So these were the couple of dependencies that we are going to need over here. I'm also going to need one more dependency, which I'll add. Okay. I'm going to say npm install body parser. Okay. So this is something that we'll need. Okay. And this is a library that is going to help us read data from the request body, like form inputs or JSON. Right. So that is what I'm adding over here. This will also be added over here as the dependency. Okay. So this is done. So now is the time that we begin building the APIs, and the first API that we are going to look into is how we can save the user with the help of MongoDB. Okay, so what I'll do is first we will add some code over here in index.js. Okay, so I'll come over here. We're making use of Express, right? So I can copy this code. This is sample code just to get a simple Express app up and running. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, paste this. Okay, we got this code from the website. We'll understand what this means. Okay, don't worry about that. But to run this, I'm going to say node, and I'm going to say index.js like so. Okay, so this is the command that I'm going to have. And now you can see example app listening on port 3000. Okay, and now if you come over here and if you go to the endpoint localhost 3000 over here, you're going to see hello world. Where is this hello world coming in from? Hello world is coming in from here. Now let me explain this simple file to you. Okay, just in case if you are not aware of the basics over here. So I'll just minimize the terminal here. Okay, I hope you all can see better. So this first chunk of the code, you can see this is where we are loading all the libraries. So this first line is loading the library. We are loading Express over here. You can see, and it's a web framework to handle HTTP routes, right? And then what we are doing is we are creating an Express app over here using this line over here. Then we are creating a variable which will have the port number where our service will run. And if you see where our application is running, it's running on 3000. So this is where 3000 is coming in from. If you want a different port, you need to change the number over here. Okay. And then what we are doing is we are defining the route over here. Okay. But before defining the route, we are starting the server. So you can see over here, this is something that we need to talk about. So I'm saying app.listen. So this is the app that we have created, app instance, which is the Express app instance. We are saying listen, and this is a port number. And here we are having an arrow function, which is doing a console log saying example app listening on port this. This is a port. Okay. And you can see this is what is being, okay, I'm sorry. So this is what is being printed on the console as well. Okay. You can see example app listening on port 3000, right? And then we have this route that we have defined over here. Now, what is this route? This route is listening to the root endpoint over here. And we have the request response object that we are passing in over here. And here we have this response that we are sending in. So we are saying response.send hello world, right? And this is the output that we are getting. Okay, so this is what we see over here. So it's a very simple, Express JS setup over here where we are making use of Express JS, and literally we have not written any code. We have got this boilerplate code right from the website on the right hand side. So you can see over here how easy it is to start or to create a web API. Right now, this is done. Now, what we need to do is we are going to develop this example further. Okay, wherein we are going to save the user with MongoDB. Okay, so here, first thing, I'm going to have port assigned as 3001. Okay, I'll save this. Okay, and then here I'll come and I'm going to have mongoose also loaded. Okay, so I'll say mongoose over here is equal to require like so, and here I'm going to say mongoose like so. Okay, this is done. Okay, so I'm loading mongoose as well, and I'm also going to load body parser. Okay, now body parser is basically used to parse JSON request body, so that is what I'm passing in. I'm going to say require again. Okay. Okay, like so, and here I'm going to say body parser like so. Okay, this is done. Now I'm creating an Express.js app. I have this port number created over here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable. So we need to enable body parser. Okay, we need to enable JSON body parsing over here. So for that, I'm going to say app.use over here, and I'm going to say body parser.json. That is what we need to mention over here. Okay, so this is done, and you can see over here the documentation over here returns a middleware that only parses JSON and looks at requests where the content type header matches the JSON or matches the type option. Okay, so with this we are enabling the JSON body parsing over here. Okay, now this is a hello world endpoint over here. Now, so far, so good. Now, to modify the API, we are going to modify this API to help us save the user information that we receive in the request. As of now, it's just returning hello world, right? It's a very simple endpoint. But I'm going to modify this. But to modify this, or before modifying this, what we need to do is we need the database, right? Where's the database? So we need to have MongoDB up and running onto our system before we start working on the API, okay? So we have Mongoose, but we don't have MongoDB yet. So MongoDB needs to be there if you want to like save data, connect to MongoDB using Mongoose, right? So what I will do is I'll make use of Docker to run MongoDB over here. Now, if you want to install MongoDB onto your system manually, you can do so. Okay, but I would be choosing Docker, and Docker is recommended. Okay, so I'll come over here. For running Docker, you need to have this Docker desktop downloaded and set up on your system. Okay, so here head over to docker.com, and here you would see like this is the option over here, download Docker desktop. So it's a desktop application that looks something like this, and it enables you to make use of Docker image and work with containers. Okay, so all the Docker commands and everything that you run from your terminal will work if you have Docker desktop installed. So I would recommend you download this Docker desktop, okay, and make sure it's up and running. Okay, so Docker has to be up and running in order to run any sort of Docker related commands. And you can see it's available for different operating systems. So just download this and install this. And installation is very simple. It's just like any other software that you install on your operating system. So I do have Docker desktop installed and up and running on my system. Okay, you can see a few options on the left hand side like containers, images and all. I do have few containers and images on my local system, okay, because I make use of Docker desktop a lot. Okay, but along with Docker desktop, it will also be great if you could open up the local terminal. Okay, so that you can run different sorts of commands from here. Okay, so if you say Docker version, okay, you should see the Docker version number appear over here. Okay, so yeah, this is properly installed and I'm able to run Docker related commands. Okay, so this is the application. Okay, you can see everything like the images and containers that we run. You can see everything over here. Okay, now how do we get MongoDB onto our local system? So for that, I'm going to come over here to Google. I'm going to search for MongoDB Docker. Now, the moment you search for this, you will see this official website link, which is from mongodb.com. Just click on this, okay, and open it. So the moment you open it, it will tell you, okay, install MongoDB Community Edition with Docker. Now, Community Edition is their free version of MongoDB that you can run on your local machine. Okay, and for learning purpose, it's great, right? There's no charges for the same. So you can see over here, before you begin, you need to install Docker over here, and you also need Mongosh. Okay, so be sure to have Mongosh as well. Okay, this is Mongosh. So what is Mongosh? To use MongoDB shell, you must have. Okay, so it's for MongoDB shell. So just make sure you have Mongosh installed, and here you will find you can see over here, open the Mongo shell download page. Okay, so here you will see the download center. You can see MongoDB shell download. So this is what it is. So you can download for your operating system. Make sure this is there, and also Docker is there. So Docker is something that I showed you. Okay. Now these are the commands that you need. So you first need to pull the Docker image, and then you need to run the image as the container. So I'll just copy this. Okay, I'll straight away run the image as the container. Okay, so let me come to the terminal and let me paste this. Okay, and let us see. So it says unable to find the image locally. So you can either pull the image and then run the command. Okay, so first it will download the image for you and then it will run it. But if you directly run the second command as well, if your image does not exist, if the image that you're trying to run does not exist on your local machine, then it is going to pull it first and then it is going to run it. So which is the scene in my case, and most probably it will be the scene in your case too. Just in case it won't be this way if you have MongoDB image already available on your system, right? So yeah, I hope this makes sense. We'll wait for a while until this downloads the entire image. This is going to be a few MBs and it will take some time depending on your operating system and the internet connection. So we'll hang in there. So now you can see the image was downloaded, and then in the end you got this value over here, which is the container ID. So if you come over here to the Docker desktop app, you will see under containers over here, you will see a MongoDB up and running. And this is the same value that got printed over here. The container ID is the value that you saw on the console. So MongoDB is up and running. Okay. Now what we need to do is we'll come back to our source code and we will have to now start connecting to our MongoDB instance using our code over here basically, right? Or using Mongoose is what I should say. So here we will connect to the MongoDB, okay, and we'll create a database as well named users. So database name will be users. So I'll say Mongoose, okay, Mongoose over here. I'll say .connect, okay. So this is a method that we get access to. Now you can see over here, the connect method has two things, URI, okay. One is the URI, which is the connection string, okay. So MongoDB, this is the MongoDB connection string, and I'll talk about what connection string is and how to get your connection string, okay. And the second is the options that you have for the connections, right? So options that you want to pass in to create the connection. So I'll come over here. Now, when you ran the MongoDB, MongoDB. When you ran the MongoDB instance, we mentioned the port number over here. So you can see over here, this part in the command. -p 27017 :27017. In this command maps the container port to the host port. This will allow you to connect to the MongoDB with localhost 27017. So this is the connection string. This is where our MongoDB is running right now. And you can see this in Docker desktop as well. So if you come over here, if you click over here, you can see 27017. If you click on this, okay, you can see it's running on 27, and you can, if you hover on this, you are going to see localhost 27017. Right? So this is where our instance is up and running. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we'll come over here Okay, I'll pass in this connection string, and there's a format in which I'll pass in, and then we'll need options as well, right? So first thing we'll need is I'll say MongoDB :2 /, okay, and I'll say localhost :27017, and I'm going to say /users. So what this is going to do is this is going to create a new database named users, and it will connect to the MongoDB instance running on this port or on this URL, okay, which is host and port. Now this is done. Now here I'm going to pass in some parameters. So I'm going to say use new URL parser. Okay, so this is one option that I'm going to pass in true. Okay, so this is going to make use of new MongoDB URL parser. This is a parser that exists, so this is recommended to use. I'm going to say use unified topology. Okay, and this is also going to be true over here. So this will make use of new server engine for better performance and stability. So that is what I'm mentioning over here. And then this is I'm going to make use of 10 over here. Okay, oops. So here I'm going to say I'm going to print in something. So I'm going to say console.log over here. Oops. So I'm going to say log like so. I'm going to say connected to MongoDB. Okay. So if this is successful, we're going to see connected to MongoDB over here. I'll just close this. Okay. Or else, okay, 1 second. So this is something that I'll get rid of. This is done. And I'll also add .catch over here if there is any sort of error. So I'll say if there is any sort of error, then we say error over here. We'll log the error to the console and we'll say MongoDB connection error. Okay, what is the error? It's comma error like so. Okay, so this is done. Oops, so have it close this way. Okay, so this is done. So what we are doing is we are connecting to MongoDB. I hope this is making sense. We are making use of Mongoose. Few options that we have mentioned, the URL, and what happens once this promise is successful or complete, right? So this is done. Now what I need to do is I will also define the schema structure for the user document. Okay, so I'm going to say const over here user schema. Okay, and I'm going to say new mongoose dot schema over here. Okay, and here I'm going to define the schema. So I'm going to say name. Oops. So name, I'm going to keep it simple. Name is string, comma, email, which is also a string like so. Okay, and then I'll add a semicolon. Now this schema structure is defined over here. Now what I will do is I will create a model from the schema that we have defined, right? So this step will give us access to methods like find, save, and all, which will allow us, to save the user, find a particular user, and all of that. Okay, it will make our life easy. So I'm going to say const user, user is equal to mongoose.model over here, and here I'm going to say user. Okay, and I'm going to pass in user schema. Okay, so you can see the options that we are allowed to pass in over here in the suggestions. Okay, so with this we created a model from the schema. The model is called as user model, and this step is giving us access to all the methods. Okay, now this is done. Okay, if I save this, okay, let me rerun the app over here. Okay, so if I run this, let us see what happens. Okay, so are we seeing any sort of errors over here? Okay, so we got a warning and it's saying us that these options are deprecated. So what I will do is I will get rid of these options, okay, because they will be deprecated. So what we can do is we'll get rid of this part over here. Okay, we don't need these options in that case. So now the code is even more simpler, as you can see, right? If I save this, let us restart this server. So now you're going to see example app listening to port 3001, and it's connected to MongoDB as well. The connection has been successfully established. You can see, okay, and these options you can even verify. Let us verify from the documentation. So where is the MongoDB Mongoose documentation here? Okay, so if you take a look at installation, and then you can connect this way, mongoose.connect. So this is how we are connecting. Okay, it's not making use of any options or showing us over here. Okay, but if we search over here, we'll get what those options are. But that's okay, since it's saying that it will be deprecated soon. I've got rid of them. Okay. Now let's move on to creating the endpoint over here. Okay, so I'll come over here just after we create this user. Okay, I'm going to say app dot, and now you can have a post request or a get request. So I'm going to have a post request because this is the endpoint that is going to help us create a new user in the system. And we'll pass in the parameters. So I'll say slash users is the endpoint. Okay, and I'm going to say async over here. Okay, and this will be a async arrow function, and I'm going to say request and response over here, like so. And then over here I'm going to, so this is our post request. Okay, now let us come over here and we'll do the processing. So first what we will do is we have the request object here, so I'll get the body from the request. Okay, so we need to pass in name and email to create a user in the request body, right? That is how the request is being designed, right? So I'm going to say const, and I'll make use of destructuring over here, the JavaScript concept. Okay, and here I'm going to say request dot body. Okay, something like this. So I get access to body, and then I'm going to have a try catch block. Okay, now within try catch block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const user is equal to new user. We're creating a user over here, and I'm mentioning name comma email, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to say await user dot save, like so. Okay, so this is done over here. Okay, and once this is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say response dot status. So I'm creating the response over here. I'm saying status as 201. Okay, because 201 is created status. Okay, so I'm sending this, I'm saying dot JSON, and I'll pass in the user object as well. Okay, the user that has been created. This is done. Now I'm catching the error. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say error over here. Okay, and I'm going to pass in error over here. I'm going to say error saving. Okay, and I'll log this error as ERR, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to say response dot status, and I'll pass in 500, and I'll say dot JSON, and here I'll return this. I'll say this error colon internal server error. Okay, so I'm going to say internal server error. Okay, like so. Okay, so this is done, and I think this is it. This is what we need. Let me save this. Okay, and we'll restart the application to be on the safer side. So you can see the application is up and running. So now it's time that we come over to Postman and try triggering the request. Okay, so what I've done is I've created a request already. So you can come over here to Postman within a collection. You can say new request, and you will be shown this kind of a page. And what you can do is you can select post over here, enter this URL, because this is where our endpoint is up and running. And we have this in the body over here, and headers have content type application/JSON. Okay, and body has this name as that of Alice and email as that of alice@example.com. You can enter whatever data you want, but be sure to follow this structure. And now here you have raw selected and JSON selected over here from this drop down. Okay, now say send over here, and you will see 201 created. You will also get Mongo ID over here, right? Now to see whether the user is actually saved or not, you can come over to MongoDB over here. And here maybe we should see some sort of a creation happening. Okay, but I'm not seeing any sort of logs over here that tell me that this is created. But what I can do is let us search for this ID. Is this created over here? So if I search like this, Alice, okay, I don't see any logs over here. Okay, which means the log has not appeared, but Since we are getting the confirmation and we are getting the ID over here, it means that the user is created. Okay. And it also indicates that we need an API from where we can fetch the user data, like all the user data. That is what it also indicates. Okay. So it now indicates the need of /users endpoint where we can fetch all the users. Okay. So yeah, this is what we have done. And what I would recommend is where once you have this collection, this endpoint created, you can actually, so let me create a blank collection over here. I'll create a blank collection. I'll say Node.js Microservices. Okay. You can name it whatever you want to. I'll add a folder. Okay. And I'll say user service like so. And I'll save this endpoint to Node.js Microservice user service over here. And I'll name this as create users. Okay. Create a user like so. Okay. So this is the endpoint that I have saved. Now going forward, we can add more endpoints over here and have this collection created. Okay, so this is done. I hope you have been able to follow along, and I hope you understand the code as to what we have done, why we have done. You can see the amount of ease Mongoose has provided to us when interacting with MongoDB. Okay, it has abstracted a lot of things. Okay, we have just said connect and we have connected to this. We have created a schema. We have created a model over here, and then you can see over here how we have created this object and we have just called save. Okay. So yeah, this is how it's working, and I hope this has been useful. So now is the time that we work on the API that will help us get all the tasks from the database. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to define the new API. I'm going to say app.get over here. And this is going to be the endpoint on /users like so. Okay. And this is going to be an async arrow function. I'm going to have a request and response here like so. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to say const users is equal to await users user dot find over here. Okay. So this is done, and then I'm going to say response dot JSON, and I'm going to return all the users. Oops, all the users over here like this. Okay. So what we are doing is we are making use of this find method that we have access to from the model over here. Okay, and it is helping us return all the list of all the users. Okay, let me save this. Let us come over here. Let us duplicate this request, and let us see if this works well. Okay, so this is for getting all users like so. Okay, and we don't need headers and body, so that is absolutely okay. Okay, we can leave them as is. Let me say send. Okay, 404 not found. So let me see. Okay, I need to restart the server. So come over here and let us trigger this now. You can see there is one user that has been created, and we are getting that as a response. Now, if I create a new user, Alice1, let us say, for example. So I'll just create, okay, so Alice, and I'll say, oops, so not over here. I need to edit over here. I'm sorry. I cannot edit the response, but I can edit the input. So you say send. You can see Alice1 is also created. Now let's try getting all the users. So you'll see Alice and Alice1 over here. So this endpoint is working absolutely okay. So it's a very simple endpoint which helps us get the list of all the users, and a very simple code to the point. I hope this has been useful. So right now, what we are doing is we are running our application from the command line over here, and we have MongoDB that we have configured into our application that is running on Docker. Now, what I would want to do is I would want to make this project a bit better. Okay, so we are going to use Docker for everything. I'm not going to run the application this way anymore. I'll tell you why. So today we have only one service. Tomorrow we'll have many more. So you will have services like To-Do or some other service you would create, So there will be many services, and it would be a little bit cumbersome to go to like like have those many terminal tabs open, go to every service and start every service by running this command. Make sure MongoDB is up using the Docker and then check the output. It's going to be a little cumbersome. There are ways wherein you could simplify this. And when you're working in microservices, it's best to Dockerize everything and run everything in containers. Okay, so we already have Docker installed onto our system. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first migrate user service or containerize user service. So what I'm going to do is user service will run in containers with the kind of setup that we are going to go ahead with. And then we will make use of something called as Docker Compose, which will manage both MongoDB as well as all the other services that we want to run in containers. So I'll come to that. Okay. But first, what we will do is let us containerize or Dockerize, I should say, user service over here. So MongoDB is already running in Docker. Okay. We need to like containerize user service now. Okay. Now, whenever we talk about containerization, okay, we need to give step-by-step instructions to Docker to build a Docker image for our application. Okay. And this step-by-step instructions is given in a file called Docker file. Okay. So I hope you're getting a sense. So we'll create a new file over here. So I'll say new and I'll say Docker file like so. Now, the moment I created Docker file over here, there's no extension for this. The moment I created Docker file, you will see this Docker icon come in. Now, if you're not seeing this for any reason, it means you don't have the Docker plugin added. So I would recommend you go over here to extension and here you can search for Docker. The moment you search for Docker, you're going to see this Docker extension. You can install this extension. I have installed this, so I'm seeing this uninstall and disable button. But this is the Docker extension pack for Visual Studio Code, and it is going to make your life easy if you plan to work with Docker. So this is the tip. So Docker file is over here now. Now, what are we going to have in this Docker file? So Docker file is a text file. It contains step-by-step instructions to build a Docker image for our application. So we want to containerize user service, and for that we need to provide all the commands over here or the instructions. Okay. So what we will do is we'll start writing the instructions. So the first thing is I'm going to mention from. You can see this suggestion from base image. Now here we have to specify the base image that will be there in the container. Okay, so I'm going to mention Node.js 18 or whatever you want to version you want to make use of. So mention that version. I'm making use of this version over here. This is the base image for Node.js, and the image that we will construct will be making use of this base image. Okay. Now I'm going to set or create the app directory. Okay. So I'm going to say work directory. I'm going to say /app. Now this is happening in the container that will be created. Okay. Then what we need to do is here, whatever project files we have, we need to copy into the container. So I'll copy package.json and index.js. Okay. So I'm going to say copy over here, and you can mention the source and destination. So source is package.json over here like so. So all the files that are starting with package, and then in the destination is over here /. Okay, so it will be copied over here. And then I'm going to run a command. So what command we need to run? We need to run npm install because we have copied the package.json. So the command that will run is npm install like so. So it will install all the related dependencies from the package.json file. Okay. Then we need to copy the rest of the app. So I'm going to say copy. Okay. Source is the current directory and the destination is the current directory. Okay. And then I'm going to expose. So I'm going to say expose port 3001 because my application is running on 3001. So I'm exposing that port. Okay. And we need to add a command over here. So I'll say command and I'll mention the executable as node. Okay. And I'll say index.js because this is the command using which you are running the project so far. You can see over here, right? So this is what we have mentioned. Okay. So this is what the Docker file is. What it is doing is it is giving the instructions to create the Docker image for our application. So you can think of this like a recipe for packaging your app with everything it needs, like code, Node.js libraries, and everything, right? So here you can see this is a base image. We set the working directory. We have copied the package.json. We have installed all the dependency using npm install. Then we copy everything else that is there in the current directory, and then we expose port 3001, and then finally we end this with this command. We say node index.js. Okay, so it will start the app with this particular command. Okay, now this is done. Now this is the recipe for this particular application, which is user service, and that is why it's residing in this directory. Okay, now over here I don't want any unwanted things to be copied to the Docker container. For example, I don't want node modules to be copied to the Docker container. So I'll stop the app from the command line like this, and then I'll get rid of this thing over here, node modules. Okay, I'll also get rid of package lock.json over here. We'll delete this. We'll just have package.json over here. I think this should be enough, right? This is done. And now what I will do is I will add one more file over here at the root of the project, not in the user service, but at the root of the project. And I'll call this file as docker compose.yaml. Okay. Now what is docker compose over here? What is docker compose YAML? Now docker compose.yaml file is a docker compose file, right? And it is used to run multiple Docker containers together. So let me tell you what. Okay, we will have multiple containers running, and we have to manage multiple containers eventually. Okay, let me tell you something. Here we have a user application which is making use of MongoDB. Where is MongoDB running? It's running in Docker. Okay, so this is one container like Docker. Then we have another container that will be created for user service, right? Because we are containerizing user service itself. So there are two containers now. Now tomorrow, if you add 10 services, there will be 10 services that will be running over here, right? And services will increase with the as your app grows. Okay, tomorrow if you add RabbitMQ, that will be another service. So there are so many services, okay, that will be there eventually. Now you need some sort of a manager to manage all these services, and that is where Docker Compose as a tool comes into picture. What Docker Compose does is it is going to have the configuration that will help you manage all the services at once. Okay, so you have to let's say if you have 10 services, what you will have to do is you will have to run 10 Docker commands to run all the 10 containers. But if you're making use of Docker Compose, you have to just run one command and the entire application with all the services will be up and running. So it becomes very, very easy to manage things, right? So we're going to set up Docker Compose and you're going to see the magic of it. So I'm going to say version over here. Version is, I'll add 3.8 over here. Okay. Now I'll say services over here. And when it comes to services, we'll start defining the services. So the first service we have is Mongo service. All right. I'm going to say the image. Oops. First services we have is the Mongo service, and we have image over here. So keep in mind the indentation. The image is a Mongo, and I'll say you can mention the version over here. Okay, you can mention the container name as well. So container name will be Mongo itself. Okay, then I'll say the ports over here. So what ports do we want? So we want so you can see the format over here: host port and the container port. So here I'm going to say 27017, and I'm going to map this to 27017 like so. Okay, so this mapping is done. We are mapping the 27017 port on the container to that of the local host. That is what we have done, and I'll add volumes over here. Okay, now what are volumes? So volumes in Docker are nothing but a way for you to persist your data. Okay, so we are adding volumes to MongoDB over here. The reason is we want to persist our data even if the container is stopped, deleted, or recreated. Okay, so yes, that is what we are telling with this volume tag over here, and I'm going to mention the volumes as MongoDB like so. Mongo data : data/db. So this is the volumes part, and then here at the bottom what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention volumes tag, and here I'm going to say Mongo data like so. So this is the volumes that I'm declaring, and we are making use of it over here in MongoDB container, right? So this is done. Mongo is defined. Now what we need to do is we need to also define the user service over here. Okay, so this is Mongo, and in the same line with the right indentation, I'm going to define user service. Okay, user service, and then I'm going to say build over here, and we need to build this folder. So I'm going to say user service like so. Okay, this is a folder in the current directory, user service. So that is what I'm building. I'm going to say container name as that of user hyphen service. Okay, this is done. And then I'll say ports over here. Ports is I'll say 3001 colon 3001 like so. So we are mapping the 3001 port in the container to that of the host, and I'm going to add a dependency. I'm going to say Mongo. Why I'm adding this dependency? Because I want this container to start first and then this should start. Reason is user service is making use of MongoDB. So if we don't mention this dependency, then user service can start first and MongoDB won't be available. It can happen, and then the user service will crash because it cannot find an instance of MongoDB. So that is why we are explicitly mentioning that, hey, we like this service depends on Mongo. Okay, so this is done over here. So I'll save this, and I hope you're understanding the difference between Dockerfile and Docker Compose. Dockerfile tells you how you can package one service into an image, and Docker Compose will tell you how you can run multiple services together. Okay, so now we have this setup. Okay, now what I will do is I'll just come one directory out over here, and I'll make sure like with the terminal. Okay, so not in this terminal, we can in fact make use of this one. Okay, so just come over here. I'll just stop this MongoDB container that is actually running. So I'll just stop this, because if we are running MongoDB from using Docker Compose, then this will conflict with that one, because this is running on 27017 port already. So I'm stopping. I've stopped this container with this button over here. Okay, which is there to stop. This is done. This is stopped. Now what I will do is I will make sure that I navigate to this folder where my project resides. So I'll copy this entire path over here. I'll say cd and I'll navigate over here. I'll say clear. So present working directory is this, and if you do ls, you have two files. So sorry, one file and one folder. User service is a folder and Docker Compose.yaml is the file. Now I need to run Docker Compose. So I'll say Docker Compose up and -d. So -d because I want to run Docker Compose in detached mode. Okay. If I don't run in detached mode, then this terminal will be used up, and I won't be able to do anything else apart from watching the logs over here. I don't want to do that, so I'll just start this. Okay. So there is a issue. So it says user service in which file? It says user service ports must be a list. Okay, in Docker Compose YAML. So if you scroll down, user service dot ports must be a list. Okay. So what is the problem over here? So let me give space. What is the issue? Okay, let me try again. Okay. Okay, services. So list issue is gone. Volumes must be a list over here. So if you scroll down, I think there is an issue with the spacing. Okay, not with the spacing for this one, but here initially there was a problem with the spacing. I added one space and that was resolved. But now over here, I need to add a colon and it will go away. Hopefully the issue will go away. So let me show this to you. Okay, must be a list again. So Docker Compose YAML services.mongo.volumes must be a list. So if you scroll up over here, okay. So here I have to add a space. Okay. So this is done. Let me see if this works now. Okay, it is working now, and you can see over here. Okay, it says the attribute version is obsolete. It will be ignored. Please remove it to avoid potential confusion. Okay. We'll get rid of that. Okay, we'll look into this thing. But right now, if you see, we have Docker, like the image being pulled. You can see how the image is being pulled, and basically it's fetching the latest Mongo image, and that is done. And now it is constructing the image for user service. You can see how it's constructing. Okay, so our user service is also getting Dockerized, and a container is being created over here for the same. And we'll wait for a while until this completes. So you can see here the logs. Network was created, volume was created, container was created and both the container were created and started. You can see over here, right? And now if you see over here, you have this Node.js Microservices folder, and here 2 services are up and running. So one is your own application that you have created, another one is the Mongo service. So now you can head over to Postman, try getting all the users. You should see an empty result over here because the database won't have anything because it's a new database. So are we getting any sort of errors over here? Let me see. User service. Okay. Let us see the logs. Okay, it's taking a bit of time. So it is failing again, and it's giving the error over here. Mongoose error, users.find is not working. It's timed out. And if you come over here in user service, so if you click on this user service over here from here, you're going to see this entire log over here, right? Now this says that Mongoose error, users.find is not working, which indicates clearly that our application is not able to connect to MongoDB. Okay. Why is it not able to connect? Can you guess? Okay, I'll give you the answer. Here we are trying to connect to MongoDB using localhost, right? But actually now MongoDB is running in the container and this application is also running in the container. So here we need to replace it with the service name, which should be Mongo:27017. And if we update this, ideally this should work now. So I'll save this, okay? But now what we need to do is we need to get the image recreated because the image is already created with the earlier source code, earlier version of the source code. And now we updated this this connection string over here, right? So we need to do that. So I'll come over here, okay, or I'll just duplicate this and I'll have the previous version of the code as well, okay, for students who wish to see the previous version of the code. So it just changed the host name over here, and we were getting one more warning that version is obsolete. Okay, so it's deprecated, so I'll get rid of version as well. It's not needed now. So I'll save this. Now I'll come over here. Okay, so you could see over here if you scroll up. Okay, so you can see this version was not needed. It's obsolete. Okay, so I'll come over here now. Now I'll say docker compose down because I need to stop all the services. So I'm stopping all the services. You can see the services going down. Okay, this green mark should go away. So just wait for a while until this stops completely. You can see this user service is removed, Mongo is removed. Okay, both are removed. Now, okay, both are removed. Now, before basically getting the Mongo service constructed, I would also want to show you something. So here, if you come to browser, okay, when we like created or we got the MongoDB image for MongoDB over here, using this docs, we ran this command. Okay, here you had the image name. You can see the image name. So what you can do is you can even make use of this same image name if you wish to. MongoDB community server :latest. So if you come over here, if you want to make use of that same image for some reason, you can actually paste it like this. That is also possible. That's just the image name. It will fetch the latest image of the community server. Okay. Now coming over here. So we did a couple of changes. Now you can come over here. You can say docker compose up. And now you will have to pass the build flag. Why build? Because you want to rebuild the services, rebuild the images, right? Because you have made changes to the code. So you want to rebuild the image and you want to run it. So I'll say build. You can see user service and you can see user service created. Okay. So I again get an error. What is this an error or log? So actually I didn't run it in detached mode. So I'll just close this. Okay. It's stopping the container. Let it stop. Okay. So both have stopped, okay, and now let me run this d-d. So I'll run this in detached mode like this, okay. So you should see now both have started, okay. If you see over here, okay, MongoDB gave. Why is MongoDB giving an error over here? Okay, so it didn't run. So MongoDB is not starting in my opinion. The reason for this is because we changed the version of MongoDB, right? We changed the image and the volume that we had was created with the earlier version of MongoDB. So what I will do is I'll say Docker compose down over here. Okay. And I will let the container stop. We'll have to delete the volume so that the volume gets recreated with this version of Mongo, and then it works fine. Okay, so you can see the network was removed. So I'll say Docker volume ls. Okay, maybe this. Okay, so you can see there are tons of volumes that I have on my local machine. I just keep working with Docker, so you'll see tons of volume, but you won't get this kind of an output if you run Docker volume ls if you are not a Docker user. But you can see this volume, Node.js Microservices Mongo data. So I'll copy this volume name and I'll say Docker volume rm, and I'll get rid of this volume. So this volume is now deleted. Now if you like run ls on volume, you're not going to see that volume. And now you can say Docker compose up build -t in detached mode. Now let us see if this works. So you can see it worked. And now probably Mongo is also up and running. You can see over here, Mongo is also up and running and user service is also up and running. Okay. So we just changed, what did we change? We changed the image name over here. Okay. You can change the image name. This was to demonstrate you can change the image name anytime, because early on we used that image and now you might have questioned why we're using this image. So you can change it. It's totally your choice. We removed version from here and we updated the connection string to reflect the service name. Now let us come over here to Postman and let us try getting the users. So you can see user is empty now. Now let us try creating the user. So Alice1 is created. Let us create one more whose name is just Alice. That is also created. Try getting all the users and you can get that. Isn't this amazing? So you are able to see everything. Now if you go to user service over here, you should also be able to see the logs over here. You can see example app listening to port 3001 connected to MongoDB. That's the logs that is getting printed. You know, if you go to MongoDB, you should see all the logs over here as well. Okay. So I hope this is clear and I hope you are able to follow along as to what we are doing. Now, as our application evolves, what will happen is there will be more services coming in and you will have to update the Docker Compose to include more services. And you have to just run Docker Compose once and all the services are up. Like here, with just one command, we have started like user service and MongoDB both. Right? Just with the configuration defined over here. So that's the benefit of Docker Compose. I hope you're understanding the importance. So now is the time that we begin talking about the task service, and the task service is going to help us manage all the tasks in our application. So here the stack we are going to use is again going to be Express plus Mongoose. We are going to have MongoDB as the database. It is going to have the tasks database. And then here we have a couple of endpoints that will help us get all the tasks and create a task as well in the database. Okay. It's going to be a straightforward service and it's of course going to have the user ID as well that will associate the task with the user. Okay, so the task that we save in the database is going to have the title of the task, the description of the task, the user ID who created the task, okay, user ID of the user, and then created at time, date and time, which will tell us when was this task created. So these 4 fields is what we are going to have for every task. Okay, now I would want you all to take this up as a challenge and try this complete app, okay, or the complete service is what I should say in this entire application. Okay, it's a simple endpoint. It's not a simple endpoint, simple service that is going to do simple tasks like getting the task, getting all tasks, and creating a new task. Okay, so pause the video right now, try it out, and then come back and watch me do the solution as well. So now is the time that we begin working on the task service. Okay, so I'll just create a new folder over here. I'll call this as task service. Okay, and within this particular folder over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add things like index.js. Oops, so I'm going to add index.js over here. And we are also going to need package.json file. So I'm going to just copy this package.json and add it over here. It's going to be mostly similar, but I'm going to rename this user service to that of task service. Okay, so this is task service. index.js, and I think the dependencies are dependencies is what we need. Okay, so this is done. Okay, the package.json is set, index is set. Okay, but here in index we need to add some code. So what I will do is I will get some code from here. So we will basically need similar boilerplate code that we have in the beginning over here. So we need to load the required libraries over here, like Express, Mongoose, and body parser. This is what we are loading. Then we have the app over here. Okay, we are creating an instance of Express over here, and the port number will change it to 3002 over here. This is what I'm going to do. Then here I will add this line as well. Okay, wherein what I'm doing is enabling JSON based parsing. Okay, so create the Express app, set up the port number, enable JSON based JSON body parsing. Okay, that is what I have done. We also need to create a Mongo connection because we are going to store everything in the MongoDB, right? So I'll copy this, paste it over here. Mongo connection is also being added, but instead of users, I'll connect this to tasks. Okay, this is also done, and now we need the schema. So I'll just copy these things. Okay, the code where we are creating the schema and the model. So I'll add this. I'll say task schema like so, and here I'm going to add Mongoose schema. Okay, I'll say title. So what all fields we need? We need title of the task. We need description of the task. Okay, we need user ID as well. Of the task, and I'm going to assign it as string. We further need created at, okay, for the task, and here I'm going to have type as that of date as of now, date like so. Okay, and the default for the same, so I'm going to assign the default over here. Default is date dot now. Okay, this is a default value if created at is not passed in. Okay, so this is the task schema over here. Now here I'm going to update this from model to task over here. Okay, I'm creating a model, and this will be task as well. Okay, and here instead of user schema, this will be task schema like so. So this is done. Okay, we have the index.js setup and all the boilerplate code done, or the initial setup is done for the database and the schema and everything, the libraries and everything. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to create the API to create the task. Okay, so I'm going to say app.post like so, and this will be mostly similar to the API we have created for the users. So I'm going to get this. Okay, we'll do the editing over here. Come over here. I'll say tasks. Okay, async request response object, and here I'll have title, description, and I'll have the user ID. So this is what I'm expecting in the request. The date created at date is assigned by default. Okay, so this is what I'm getting from the body. And then over here, instead of creating a user object, I'm creating a task over here. Okay, and then this is going to be tasks like so. Okay, and here I'll get rid of this, and I'll say title, description, and then I'll say user ID like so. Okay, and then over here I'll add task.save and JSON, and we are returning this JSON over here, and the JSON response we will return should be the task basically. So this is something that we can return, right? I hope this is making sense. Okay, and the response is response in case of error is fine, absolutely fine. Okay, so this is done, and then we have to like start the server as well. So here I'll start the server like so. Okay, so I'll add this over here, example app listening. Okay, instead of example app, I'll say task service, right? Task service listening on this port, and here instead of user service, I'll say user service listening on port. So this is what I'm doing over here. Okay, I hope this is making sense. Okay, this is done. So what we have done is we have created the endpoint that will enable us to create the tasks into our application. Now let us quickly set up the endpoint, which will also help us get the task from the application. So I'll copy this endpoint which is helping us get all the users. I'll paste it over here. Okay, and instead of users, this will be tasks over here. I'll say instead of users.find, it will be task.find, and here it will be tasks, and we will return this tasks over here like so. Okay, this is done over here, and we have both the endpoints ready. Okay, now let us containerize this and let us run this inside Docker. So what I will do is I'll create a duplicate of the Docker file that exists in user service within task service. Okay, and I don't think we need to make any changes over here. It is just going to be same, except we may need to make the change to the port number. That is it, I think, right? So this is done. The Docker file is also created. Now let us head over to Docker Compose, and in Docker Compose, I'll duplicate the user service and I'll add the user service replica over here, and I'll name this as task service, right? So I'll call this as task service. And instead of building user service, this will be task service. Container name also will be task service, and this will be 3002 and 3002, and it will depend on MongoDB. So I hope this is making sense as to what we are doing, why we are doing, what sort of changes we have done so far. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. We have just replicated the process of creating the user service into task service. Now we'll come over here and I'll say Docker Compose down. Okay, so I'll stop everything. Okay, let us restart all the containers. Okay, and this will also make sure that user services, task service is also created. So you can see now everything is going down. So it got removed. Everything is clear. Now let us build let us build all the images, and let us run this in detached mode. So I'll just run this, and let us see what happens. So if I scroll up over here, okay, what is this error? Okay, it was not an error, it seems like a warning, but everything is created and started, as you can see over here. Okay, and if you see here, everything has green over here. So everything seems fine. Now let us test all the endpoints. So I'm going to come over here to Postman, and here I'm just going to duplicate this entire folder of user service to that of task service. So I'm going to say task service, and here I'll just close this. So here, instead of creating a user, we'll have to create a task, right? And here, instead of users, this will be task. Okay, and this will be 3002. So is it task or tasks? Let us see this. Okay, it's tasks, and here it's users. Okay, it's plural basically. So here also it will be plural. Okay, and here in the body we need to pass things like so what all things we need to pass? Okay, so we need things like task name. So name is bring groceries, like so. And instead of email, this will be description. Okay, grocery description, like so. Okay, and this will be as description. Okay, so this has to be, so let me check over here the schema. So everything is small, title, description, and user ID. So here title, description, and then we will also have to add the user ID. So I'll add a user ID like so. I'll say user ID, and I'll say string, it is 1. Okay, so I'm adding user ID as 1. So this is done. So you can format this as well if you wish to. If single line is not looking that good, so I'll just press enter and I'll get this formatted like so. Okay, this is done. So this is the JSON that will pass. So I'll just save this and let us trigger this. So you can see the task is created. You can see like description, the user ID, the task ID, and the created at date and time. Okay, this is done. This is created in a perfect way, right? So, but we don't have the task name is what I can see over here. Okay, so this has to be title, but we pass in name over here. So 1 second. So this will be title. And let me run this again. So now title is coming in. So title was not getting saved because we were passing it as name and title was going in as null. So that is why it was not coming in over here in the response. But now it's saved. You can see over here. And now let us try to get all the tasks. So I'll rename now this tasks like so, and I'll say tasks, and this one will be 3002. Save, trigger. So you can see now this is the first task and this is the second task. Okay, so task endpoint is working absolutely okay in containers. You can see this containers. If you go and check the logs, you're going to see task service listening to port 3002 and connected to Mongo. User service listening to port 3001 connected to Mongo. So both the services are running independently, okay, and both are able to save the information. I hope this has been useful and I hope you have been able to follow along. So now is the time that we begin talking about the notification service. Now, what is notification service and why do we need this kind of a service in our entire microservices project? So notification service, like the name says, notification service is going to send out notification. That is what the role of notification service. Okay. What is the role of task service? It is going to help us work with tasks, like create tasks, manage tasks, get all the tasks, and you can add more functionalities over here as well. User service, it is going to help us manage and work with users. So create users, save users, all of that is going to be user service. Of course, both these services can be extended with more functionality, but after a task is created, okay, we want the functionality to have, we want a particular functionality to happen, and that functionality is basically we wish to send a notification that this particular task has been added for this by this particular user. Okay, now how will this notification service function? Okay, so task service will accept the task, it will add the task, and then it will send some sort of a event to notification, and then notification service is going to send out the notification to whoever it wishes to. Okay, that is what notification service is. That is what notification service is going to do. It is just going to do the job of notifying. Okay, now here we are actually not going to send out email SMSs, but actually I'm going to log. Okay, so we are going to build asynchronous communication over here between microservices. So we have task service, user service. I'll add notification service, which task service will asynchronously communicate with the notification service, and notification service, after it receives the communication, it is going to send out the notification that it's configured for. Now, what is asynchronous communication? Asynchronous communication meaning none of the tasks or nothing is blocked if notification service is down or something like that. Okay, so that is what asynchronous communication is. For example, here, if we are doing a payment, let's say we are building an e-commerce application, we are doing a payment. Now, if the payment service does not respond, okay, the payment is going to fail. So that's synchronous communication, right? Because one service is dependent on another. Here, we don't want to build that kind of coupling. We want to have decoupled services. So the communication between task service and the notification service is going to be asynchronous, because notifications are not notification. We don't want notifications to be instant, right? It is not expected that notifications will be instant. It's okay if there is a delay of few seconds or even a minutes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create notification service. Okay. So since now you are aware of what the goal of notification service is, I'm going to create this folder notification service. Okay. Now I spoke about asynchronous communication. Now how will asynchronous communication work? So for asynchronous communication, we are going to need something called as message broker. Okay. We need a middleman basically, or a postman. So if we are talking about asynchronous communication, there has to be a middleman who keeps all the messages. For example, let's say 10 tasks are added in the task service by 10 users, right? And let's say notification service is down. Okay. So what task service will do is it will send the event or the event alert that, hey, 10 tasks have been added by these 10 users. And whenever notification service is up, it will check it will check with the middleman that, hey, has any task been added till the time I was down. So the middleman is going to say, yes, these were the 10 tasks that task service told me. And then notification service is going to start process that event one by one. That is how it's going to work. Okay, so what we are going to do over here is I'm going to create a few files. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to need package.json over here. Okay, package.json. And here I'm going to call this as notification service. Okay, we'll leave everything as is. Okay, we won't make much of a change. And index.js is also what we need. Index.js is what we need. I'll also need a Docker file. So I'm going to paste this Docker file over here. And instead of 3001, I'm going to say 3003 here. Okay, that's it. Now, I spoke about middlemen. Okay, there has to be a middleman that facilitates asynchronous communication. And the middleman that we are going to use will be message broker. Okay, I hope you're understanding the concept of message broker. So think of message broker like a middleman or a post office in your system. Okay, it is going to receive the messages from one part of your application like task service, and it is going to deliver them to the other part. Okay, why we are making use of middlemen? Because we want asynchronous communication. If we don't want asynchronous communication, then this middleman is not needed. Task service has to communicate with notification service, but if notification service is down or it's taking time to respond, then task service is also affected. So we don't want that effect to happen and cascade to task service, and that is why we are decoupling both of them by introducing a middleman. I hope this is making sense. Now, the middleman over here that we are going to use will be a message broker. Okay, now here you can see this is RabbitMQ website and this is a message broker. Now, one thing I'll tell you over here, there are quite a few message brokers out there in the market, but RabbitMQ is quite popular. So I'm going to choose RabbitMQ to work over here. Okay, so RabbitMQ, you can see over here, it's a messaging and streaming broker that is easy to deploy, easy to use. Okay, you can read more about RabbitMQ over here. And if you're interested to get started with RabbitMQ, you can click on getting started and you have the entire documentation. So you can select Java and you can see over here, hello world with the help of Java and all. Okay, it is going to give you all the documentation. If you are working on Node.js, okay, so here you're going to see JavaScript. And you can see everything over here around what we call RabbitMQ. Okay, and now if you come over here in JavaScript, you will see if you scroll down. Okay, RabbitMQ is a message broker. It accepts and forwards messages. Okay, and you can think of it like a post office. When you put in a mail that you want posting in postbox, you can be sure that the letter carrier will eventually deliver the mail to the recipient. That is what RabbitMQ does. Okay, so RabbitMQ is a post box, a post office, and a letter carrier. I hope this is crystal clear. Okay, so here there is a concept of producer and consumer as well. Okay, so producer is a service that is going to produce the events or the messages, and consumer is going to be the one who is going to consume. So who is the producer in our case? In our case, task service is going to be the producer and notification service is going to do the job of consuming those messages and sending out the notification. That is what it's going to do. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So here you can see producing and consuming is one of the concept that is mentioned. There is a concept of queue as well over here. Okay, so like RabbitMQ is like a post office. Okay, and within RabbitMQ, there is something called as queue that you can create. So RabbitMQ can have multiple queues created. And you can think of queue like a post box. You can see over here. Okay, so let's say you want your letter to be delivered to United States, or let's say you want your letter to be delivered to Washington. So you will have one queue wherein you will put that message, because that queue will make sure that your message is going to Washington. Let's say you want another letter to be delivered to New York. So there is another queue for New York. So you will put your message there and it will be delivered to New York. So queue meaning it has a particular destination. Okay, so you can create queues to segregate messages. Okay, make messages and events basically that so that they are segregated. Okay, now many producers can send messages to go in one queue, and many consumers can try to receive data from one queue. Okay, so this is something. So you can explore and read more about RabbitMQ concepts over here. Okay, but if you scroll down over here, Here it starts talking about how you can make use of RabbitMQ in your JavaScript application. Now Node.js app is nothing but a JavaScript app. Okay. And you can see it's suggesting us to install this package onto our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Okay. Come over here and say new terminal. Okay. And here let's navigate to notification services. Okay, and then let's run this npm install amqp lib. Okay, so this is helping us communicate or interact and work with RabbitMQ message broker. So we have added this, and now if you go to notification service, if you open like package JSON, you will see this dependency being added. Okay, where is the dependency? It's not added here. Okay, so what happened? Let me see. Am I in the right package? Let me close this. Okay, so let me open this again. Okay, now it's added actually. So the changes were not loaded by the ID. I don't know why, but yeah, they are added now. So what we will do is we'll copy this dependency and we'll come over here to task service, and we'll also add this dependency in the task service, because in order to send the message, task service needs this library, and to read and receive the message, notification service needs the library. Okay, and all the other things within notification service. So since I ran npm install, you can see the node module folder and all created. I'm going to delete this. Okay, let us delete. Also, we don't need this package lock JSON, so I'll get rid of this. Okay, I'll keep things light over here. All right, and here I'll save this. Okay, so this is done. All right, we have the required dependency, and now what we are going to do is, you can see over here there is already some code that has been written that will help us communicate with RabbitMQ. So you can refer to this. Okay, but I'm going to come over here. Okay, and I'll close all. Okay, let us close all, and we'll begin with the task service. Okay, so task service first will connect to RabbitMQ, and it will start sending in the task related details to RabbitMQ. Okay, that is what we are going to do first. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to come over here in task service. Okay, and here just after we, so if you scroll down over here, just after we create this task, okay, I'm going to create a couple of variables. So I'm going to say let channel, and I'm going to say connection over here. Okay. Now, what is channel and connection? So these are global variables to store RabbitMQ connection and RabbitMQ channel. Okay. Then I'm going to need a function. Now this function is going to help us connect with RabbitMQ with the retry logic. So we are going to have the retry logic also built in. Okay. Retries meaning if there is a connection failure, there are a number of retries that it has to perform. Okay. So here I'm going to say a sync. And you can see a sync function over here. I'm going to call this function as connect RabbitMQ with retry. Something like this. The parameters, I'm going to say retries is equal to 5 and delay is equal to 3000. This is in milliseconds. Okay. Now, oops. So I think 1 second. So I'll just get this out of the way. Okay. So we already had curly braces. I'll just come over here. I'll just take this to new line so that it's much more cleaner. Now over here, or let's not take this to new line. Instead, we can take this to new line like so. Okay. Okay. So this is done. Okay. Now what we need to do is here, I'm going to say while. Oops. So here I'm going to say while. Okay. And while I'm going to make use of retries. So while retries exist, okay, while retries exist, we're going to try and make the connection. Okay. Now how are we making the connection? So we are going to say connection is equal to await, and I'm going to say AMQP. Okay. Now AMQP, what is AMQP? And it does not exist in our application yet. So we need to import it. So you remember we added a library. So I'm going to say over here const AMQP is equal to require, and I'm going to pass in over here AMQP lib. So this is a library that we need to load, and this is a library that we have actually installed, right? So I'll scroll down. I'm going to say AMQP. I'm going to say dot. You can see dot and you'll see we have connect. Now what is connect? Connect is going to help us establish the connection. So I'm going to say AMQP, which is the protocol, and I'm going to say colon 2 forward slashes RabbitMQ. Now why RabbitMQ? Because this is the host name. Okay, this is where our RabbitMQ server will be running. Now why we are calling it RabbitMQ? Because it's going to run in Docker container. We have not added it yet to Docker Compose, but we are going to add it as a service. Okay. Then we are going to need to create a communication channel. So I'm going to say channel is equal to await connection dot, and I'm going to say create channel over here like so. And then I'm going to say await, and I'm going to say channel dot, sorry, not channel. I'm going to say connection. Okay, channel. In fact, it will be channel dot assert queue. Okay, so we'll make sure that the queue exists, because this is where we need to post the events, right? That the task has been created or not. Okay, and you can give this queue a name. So I can say task underscore created like so. Okay, and then if you come over here, we are going to say we are going to add a log over here, and I'm going to say connected to RabbitMQ. Okay, this is done. Okay, so what we are doing is we are creating a connection, then we are getting a channel, we are creating a communication channel on the connection, and then we are making sure that task created queue exists, and if it does not exist, assert queue will create it. Okay, then we are logging that we have successfully connected to RabbitMQ, and this log is coming in if we don't get any sort of exceptions. Now if we get any sort of exceptions, okay, so here I'm also going to add a return like so. Okay, and if we get any sort of exceptions, we have the catch block wherein we're going to add error message over here. I'm going to say RabbitMQ connection error like so, and here I'm going to pass in the error message. Oops. So here I'm going to say ERR OR, okay, error dot message like so. So this is what it is, and then I'm going to, we have a retry logic also, right? So I'm going to reduce retries by 1 over here. Okay, and then let us do one more log over here. So I'm going to copy this again. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to add retries over here. Okay, so retries, and I'm going to say retrying again. Okay, retrying again, and we are printing in the number of retries that are left. Okay, and then here I'm going to say await. I'm going to create a new promise. Okay, and I'm going to say res, and this is going to have an arrow function. I'm going to say set timeout. So we need to do a timeout as well. Why? Because it has to be tried out after a delay, right? So I'm going to say res and delay over here. This is what I'm doing. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. Okay, we are creating a connection over here using this logic. If the connection fails, we are basically reducing the number of retries, and then we are setting a delay over here, a timeout, okay, for 300. Okay, I hope this is making sense over here. So now once this connection is established, okay, once this connection is established, what we need to do is we need to create a message. Okay, so here connection, okay, connect RabbitMQ with retry. Okay, this was the method name. So we also need to call the method over here. So I'll come over here and just when the application launches, I'm going to say connect RabbitMQ with retry like so. So this method is called. Okay, now the connection is created, it will be connected to RabbitMQ, but now we also need to send the task related information. So here, once the task is saved, what we need to do is just before we return the response here, okay, I am going to come over here. I'm going to create a message, okay, and message is equal to, so I'll have a message, I'll say task ID, okay, and I'm going to say task dot underscore ID, because this is ID is the field that exists in task. Okay, this is the Mongo ID, and then I'm going to say user ID, and I'm going to pass in title like so. Okay, so this is what I'm sending in. This is my message basically, and I'll add a if statement over here. Now message is constructed. We'll check if channel exists. If channel exists, then we send in to the queue. Okay, so if channel does not exist, we send in an error message. So I'll say return response dot status, and I'll say 503 over here, and I'll add the JSON over here. What is the JSON that we need to add? So I'll say, oops. So JSON is something like this, and we will say here error. Okay, and RabbitMQ not connected. So this is the error message. Now, if the channel exists, then I'm going to say channel dot send to queue like so. Okay, and I'm going to pass in the queue name. So what is the queue name? Task created. Now make sure you don't have any typo in the queue name, otherwise the message will go to the wrong inbox. Okay, so task created is what you have added. No sort of typos allowed over here. Okay, otherwise you will land in errors and you will be wondering why the error is happening. So I'll make use of buffer over here. I'll say buffer dot from. Okay, and I'll say JSON dot stringify, and I'll send this message as a JSON. Okay, so now this is done in my opinion. Let me save this. I don't think there is anything left. So we are sending in the task details to the RabbitMQ. Okay, now what we can do is here in Docker Compose, we will also add RabbitMQ related details like RabbitMQ. We need a RabbitMQ service, right? In short. So I'll scroll up here, and here just below Mongo, I'm going to say RabbitMQ. This has to be the name of the service that you have mentioned over there. I'll add image. Image is RabbitMQ :3 management like so. Okay, and here I can say container name is RabbitMQ. Okay, and then I'll have ports. Now RabbitMQ comes in with two things. Okay, one is RabbitMQ and the web interface. So RabbitMQ by default runs on 5672, and that is what we are exposing on our local machine. And then I have the web UI, which is 15672:15672. Okay, this is the web UI or the web interface that we get access to. So I'll save this. Okay, this is what it is. I don't think anything else is needed, and let us come over here and let us try running the application. So here I'll just zoom in a bit. I'll just expand this a bit. Okay, so this is where we are. I'll just say docker compose up build -t. Okay, so RabbitMQ image will be pulled in. Okay, and this will be pulled freshly. I don't think I have, or I might have the RabbitMQ related image. So I think I have RabbitMQ related image. Okay, so let us see what happens. Okay, one problem over here. Okay, RabbitMQ, there is a conflict. So there is a container that is already using RabbitMQ. Okay, no problem. So I'll come over here. I'll change the container name. Okay, I'll say RabbitMQ and I can say node over here. Okay, RabbitMQ node. Okay, this is the container name, and I'll make use of this same name in the task service here. Okay, come over here. Let us come here. Where is instead of RabbitMQ node. Okay, I saved this. One thing we missed over here in Docker Compose is the task service will depend on RabbitMQ. Okay, RabbitMQ like so. Okay, so I'll come over here and I'll just restart everything. I'll say Docker Compose up build -d. Now you don't need to rename RabbitMQ to RabbitMQ node. I'll tell you why, because if you don't have any containers with the same name, you don't need to rename. Otherwise, you will have to rename like I'm doing. Okay, so now it's recreating. Okay, so user service is already in use by this container. Okay, what is this container? So let me check for this. Okay. Okay, so it was giving this error, but I restarted. I redid the Docker Compose build -d and the error went away, but I got a different error this time that the port where RabbitMQ is trying to run is already allocated. So there is a RabbitMQ instance already running on my system. That's a problem. So I'll come over here, maybe go to containers, and there is this container that already exists on the same port. Okay, so what I will do is I'll just stop this container. Okay, so I'll just select this. I'll say, okay, I'll have to delete this. So, okay, it's for another project, but I'll just delete this. All right, this is deleted. No problem whatsoever. Let us rerun this. I hope it works this time. Let us see what happens. Ideally it would. Okay, without any issues. And yeah, let's do it. User service is getting recreated. You can see, okay, 5672 is already allocated. Why is it already allocated? Okay, I understood. So I have RabbitMQ locally installed maybe. So I'll go to services and I'll check what is running over here. No, so nothing is running here yet. Let me check. So I did run this command on Windows and I found like there are a few services that are running on this port. So I don't want to kill these services. So what I will do is I'll change the port. Okay. So you might not need to change the port over here. So here, this is the host port and this is the container port. So the host port I'll change to 5673 and same thing I'll do over here. Okay, here it's not needed. So only here it's needed. And now let me try running this. Okay, I hope that it runs this time. Okay, so only the port issue was there. I'm recreating the container and I think it should work fine. Okay, let us wait until the user service is also up and running. Okay, it worked. Okay, 15672 is also allocated. So I'll update that port as well. I'll make it 15673. So the issue for the port above, the first port is gone. The second port issue has come in. So I'll just rerun this now. My opinion, it should work now. Okay. So user service is waiting and task service is recreated. So let us wait until this is recreated. Okay, it started. All the services are up now. You can see. Okay. If you come over here, okay, I'll go to localhost colon 15672. 15672 is default, but you have to go to 15673 because we updated the port number. So if you have not updated the port number, it will be 15672 for you. And you enter the admin as the username and admin as the password. Now this is the management UI of RabbitMQ. If you, okay, it did not work. So why is it not working? Maybe it's guessed. So by default, the password is username and password is guessed. Okay, it worked. So by default, the username and password is guessed if you don't mention it anywhere. Okay, we have not mentioned. So guessed is what you have to use. And now if you see over here, okay, this is RabbitMQ web interface. You can see all the connections, channels, exchanges, queues, and admin related things over here. Now, if you go to overview, if you see over here, there is one connection. This is our application that is connected to RabbitMQ. There is one channel that exists, 7 exchanges and 1 queue. Okay. If you scroll up, you go to connection. So this is our application that is connected to RabbitMQ. Okay. You go to channels. This is the channel that we created in the code. If you remember, we created the channel in the code, right? So that is what this is. Okay. And if you go to exchanges, okay, you won't find anything here. But if you go over here in queues, you're going to see this task created queue. Okay. So it's running up and running. And if you go over here, you should see all the messages, whatever message you push in. So there is one binding over here. You can see. So if you push any sort of message, it should come in this queue. So should we do that? Should we create a task? Let us try creating a task. Okay. So I'll create this task. Let us create. It's created. Okay. Let's come over here. You can see some activity happening over here. Graph changing, which means there is some message that came in. You can see message read. Right, queued message also is updated. And now here you can see ready 1, total 1. So which means one message is ready to be consumed. So go to queue. You can see now ready and total is 1. So go to task created queue and you'll see over here, there is one message that is waiting. So if you go down, you'll see get message and say get messages. So you're going to see the task that has been sent. This is the message that came in via task service. Okay, you can see this ID. This is a task ID and this is coming in. So you can see this is the task ID, the MongoDB ID, okay, or the ID of the document 68498. And if you come over here, 68498. Okay, now this message is published in this particular queue And I hope you're getting a sense of what we are doing. This message is published in this queue. Okay. Now notification service does not exist yet. Does it exist? No. So when we create notification service, it is going to do the job of consuming. Okay. It is going to do the job of consuming all these messages and sending the notification. That is the job of notification service. I hope it is making sense. Okay. So let us head over to notification service. Do you want to do end to end? Yes, of course. Why would I ask this question? So here you can see everything is done from the task service end. Come over to notification service. Notification service does not have anything. So most of the code will be similar to what we wrote in task service, wherein we import the library first. Okay, I'll go step by step. We import the library first. Okay, this library is already added in package.json that we have. Okay, then what we are going to do is we are going to have a method. Now here the method we are going to have is a bit different since this is a consumer. Okay, so I'll copy this entire method. We'll modify this method on the go. So instead of connect to RabbitMQ with retry, I'm going to call this method as start. Okay, I'll keep it simple. I won't have any parameters. We are not having retry logic. You can have it if you want to. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this while block. Okay, so this while block is gone. And now here, what we are doing is we are getting the connection first. Okay, we are getting the channel. And here we would be we are asserting on the queue, which is fine. Okay, and now here, instead of returning, we don't want to return over here. Okay, so here I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, return. And here I'm going to say, so once the assertion on the queue is done, I'm going to say log. So I don't want to say connected to RabbitMQ. I'll say notification service is listening to messages. Okay, this is a message that I've printed in. And here now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a consumer. So I'm going to say channel.consume. So we have this access to this method over here. Okay, consume, and it is going to accept the queue. Okay, what is a queue? Queue is the name of the queue, and then it will have a callback over here. Okay, so I'll take this queue. This is the queue that we are listening to. Okay, it's best if we create a variable with the queue name. Okay, rather than copy pasting it again and again. Okay, because that's much more cleaner. But I'm not doing that right now. But there's something that can be done. Okay, you can do it. So here this is added. Okay. This is a arrow function, and now here I'm going to say const task data. Okay, I'm going to say JSON dot parse. So I'm parsing the data because the data we get is in the form of JSON. So I'm going to say message dot content dot content dot toString, something like this. Okay, so this is done. Message dot content dot toString. And I'm going to have a log over here. Okay, console log. Here I'm going to say notification new task. And what is a new task? Okay, so we can print in the task title. So I'm going to say task dot, or we can say task data dot title over here, like so. Okay, so this is what we can do, and we can even log the entire task data. Okay. So I'm going to paste in over here, new task and task data. Okay, something like this. So this is done, and I'm going to say channel. So we need to acknowledge the message as well. Okay, channel.ack, and we need to say that we have received this message to the channel. Okay, that is what we are doing. So this is done, and this retries and all does not exist over here. So I'm just going to get rid of all of this. Okay, in the catch block. Okay. This is done, and now what we need to do is here we need to just call start, like so. Okay, so this is the method that we need. This is the only method that is going to exist in notification service. Now if you come to the management UI over here, okay, there is a thing over here which is acknowledgement. Okay, there is a thing called acknowledgement. So here I can get the message. Okay. And I can say over here automatic acknowledgement. So acknowledgement means this message is marked as processed and it will be deleted. Okay, that is what it means. So here what we are doing is we are processing the message and then we are marking it as acknowledged. We are letting RabbitMQ know we have successfully processed this message. I hope this is making sense. Okay, so let me take you through this entire code once again. Okay, we'll do a run. First, we are getting this library because this is the library that is going to help us communicate with RabbitMQ. And this is amqplib. So we are importing this library at the top. We have this async function, which is start. First, it's going to create a connection to RabbitMQ. This is the host name. Where is this host name coming in from? From Docker Compose. Here is where we have mentioned this. Okay. You can have a cleaner name called RabbitMQ if it does not create conflict on your machine. Okay. I work with RabbitMQ a lot, so it definitely created conflict and I was not able to run with the RabbitMQ host name. Okay. Then you have create channel. So this is going to create a communication channel through which we will send and receive the message. Then we have a queue that is being asserted. If this queue does not exist, okay, it will be created and notification service will start listening to this queue. Or if it exists, it is going to do nothing and it is going to start listening to the queue. And then over here, it will start consuming the message. Okay. So what we do is we start consuming in a way wherein we first convert the message content from binary to JavaScript object. And then we print a sample notification, okay, onto the log. And then we acknowledge to RabbitMQ that we have processed the message. Okay. So this is the entire thing over here. Okay. Now here, instead of printing it onto the console, you can have the logic to send email, to send SMSs, or to send a mobile notification, whatever you want to do, because this is a notification service. Right? So once you get the data, you can take it and process it. Okay. Now notification service is not yet up, right? It's not yet processing messages or it's not yet consuming. So there is one message yet in the queue. If you refresh, as per the management UI, there is one message that is ready to be consumed. You can see over here. As soon as notification service comes in, okay, with this code, it is going to consume this message and mark it as acknowledged. Okay, right now it's not there. We have not done Docker Compose up, right? So this is not there. And this is a very good example that message is being stored in RabbitMQ until notification service is down. Okay, so notification service does not exist yet. It's down and consider it's down. Okay, we have not built it yet. But once we build it, we will start consuming messages from message queue. So this is a classic example of asynchronous communication, right? Now over here, I'll just start everything. Okay. Oops. So I missed one thing. So I need to actually add a notification service in Docker Compose. So that is something I missed. I'm sorry about that, but I'll come over here. Docker Compose. Okay. Let me see if this message goes away. Okay. If we restart RabbitMQ, it does not go away. So RabbitMQ is already running. So it did not do anything, which is fine. So I'll come over here and here for notification service, I'm going to duplicate this like so. Okay. And here for task service, I'm going to say notification service. And instead of task service, I'm going to say notification service. Or one second, what is the folder name? Notification -service. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to start pasting this all over. Okay. This is a service. It will be at 3003. Okay. And it depends on MongoDB and RabbitMQ. Okay. That is what we have done. Okay. Now let us come over here. RabbitMQ, Docker Compose is updated. So let us do a build. Okay. Now let us wait until notification service is up and running. Let us wait. So you can see notification service is created. Okay. So since notification service is created, the message also will be consumed. Let us see if it is. It's not yet. Okay. Hold on. Okay, it's not yet consumed. Let me see what the problem is. So here you can see notification service. Okay, it's consumed. Over here you can see it's consumed. Okay, you can see the task is printed. So first you can see we are printing the title and then we are printing the entire task. Okay, but here, okay, so it's updated and marked as acknowledged. You can see now this ready counter is set to 0. You can see. So it was processed, right? Did we create, there was a delay, right? Did we create the new task now? No, it existed earlier, when notification service did not have the code to consume, and then once it consumed, the notifications are out, right? So this is a classic example of, what we call asynchronous communication. Now, if I add one more task, okay, you will see that task being added over here in the notification service. Let me add one more. So one more will come in, you can see, okay. And if you go to task service, where is task service? You're going to see, okay, we are not printing when we are sending the task, but that's okay. You can send in. But here you can see in notification service, it's being consumed well. So I hope you're clear as to what is happening. Okay, you can also see some spike over here, which means messages went through RabbitMQ. Okay, so I hope you're clear on what we did over here, why we did over here, and what are the things we did, why we did. And I hope you're clear on the objective of notification service and why this service exists in our project. I hope this has been useful.